Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Hi.
Christina, are you there?
Sorry. Yep, I am. I just sent you a
Okay. Okay, I just got it. Okay, so we're gonna wait like about 3 minutes, to be respectful of everyone's time. And then we're gonna get started.
sounds good.
Okay, we're gonna get started now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Francoise Darcel Ledger, and I am the chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee. This is the Hartford Board of Education Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. And it's August 30th, 2023. And we're going to just popcorn to introduce ourselves and our roles. And I will pass it on to Erin Doyle.
Good evening. My name is Erin Doyle. I'm the Acting Assistant Director of Intervention and Expanded Learning Opportunities. And I will pass it along to Carla McGee.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla McGee. I am from Intervene K-12. And I will pass it to Paul Foster.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. Paul Foster. I am the Deputy Superintendent of Schools, and I will pass it to Natalie Gordon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Gordon. I'm a Chief Schools Officer for Attuned Education Partners. Excited to be here. I will pass it along to Malika.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malika Butcher. I'm a Director of Instruction with Attuned Education Partners. Also happy to be here, and I will pass it over to Jessica Long. Did we lose Jessica? Jessica. they called you.
Hi, I did. I got kicked out, but I'm back. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessica Long. I'm with Attuned Education Partners, and I'm the Deputy Chief of Adult Learning. And I will pass it over to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Melissa Prescott here from Intervene K-12. And I work cross-departmentally, cross-functionally, but specifically lead our research initiatives. And I'm sorry, I had a little bit of trouble getting in, so I'm not sure who has or hasn't gone. I do apologize.
Hi, everyone. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, Superintendent, but I'm wearing actually the hat of Interim Chief Academic Officer. Usually I don't join the committee meetings, but I am serving in a dual capacity. So that's me today. And I'm going to tag in Katie Leonard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Leonard. I'm the Acting Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and I will tag Paul. Did you get a turn yet? Deputy Superintendent Foster?
I did. I think Erin hasn't gone yet.
Oh, Erin, go ahead.
No, I went as well.
So the other Erin, there's another Erin.
Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aaron McLeod. I'm from Intervene K-12. Excited for a conversation with you all this afternoon.
Jonte Brody, Hartford School Board member.
And this is Phil Reger, Chairman of the Board.
I think that was everyone, and thank you for introducing yourselves and your roles. Christine, can you please pull up the agenda?
Can you see that? Oh, did I freeze?
We can see it.
We can see it. You're good.
You're good. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So the first item on our agenda is contract approval for Attuned. So we'll be hearing that presentation.
Yes, and we have Deputy Chief Paul Foster on the call for that, as well as members from the Attuned team. So,
Yes, thanks. Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here and walk through and present our proposed contract with Attuned Education Partners. And as you heard in the introductions, we have Natalie, Jessica, and Malika here from Attuned who are also available to answer questions. I'm just going to walk through the presentation and the purpose behind this contract, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So if we go ahead and jump to the next slide. There's a couple slides in here about Attuned, and certainly if you have more questions about the organization, obviously we're happy to take those at the end. But Attuned is an organization that is focused on building capacity in pre-K-12 organizations. And as you'll hear me talk about in a few minutes, this is one of the things we are electing to fund in part with ESSER funding. And as you all know, and as we have talked about in several previous meetings, this is our last year to spend ESSER, and one of our priorities in the spend down of our ESSER funding is thinking about how do we use that resource to build capacity that will support the work over the long term. And so this, there's a nice partnership between our need in terms of building our capacity and Attuned's work and their focus on that capacity building. And I'll just highlight their focus. They do a lot of work in urban districts like Hartford with a focus on educational equity and excellence. You do see a picture there of the team, lots of smiling faces. I see Natalie smiling on the call too. And so, this is the team we are proposing to partner with. So if we jump to the next slide, I won't read all this to you, but a little bit more about Attuned in terms of both what they bring and what they deliver. A diverse team of practitioners, a lot of experience. So many of the team that we're working with from Attuned have spent years working as school leaders and district leaders, many in urban districts. So they know the experience of the work we're trying to lift and are partners in doing that. And I also, on the left-hand side, want to highlight flexible model. So what I'm presenting to you this evening in terms of the proposed contract with Attuned, again, I said it's around capacity building, but it's capacity building that we as Hartford Public Schools have identified that we need and want, right? There's not a cookie cutter model where Attuned is saying, well, this is what we do for districts. This is us saying to Attuned, this is the support that we need, and them tailoring a program and a plan to that ask. In terms of how we deliver, I've already talked about capacity building, and I'll highlight the last bullet here. We embrace the and, so appreciating the fact that Attuned understands that there's not one thing that solves the challenges we face or helps us take advantage of the opportunities we have in front of us. And so appreciate the fact that Attuned comes at this understanding there are multiple ways to get to the end result. So if we jump to the next slide, this is the last one on Attuned, and I'm going to get into the proposed contract. You can just see what you see here is just the breadth of their work. So working across many states with many organizations and serving a lot of students. And I will just highlight as a metric, Attuned's Net Promoter Score. So the Net Promoter Score is a very standard, industry standard customer service metric. It's used across not just education, but lots of industries. It's essentially based on the question you see there on the screen, right? So asking customers, would you recommend Attuned? And what you see on this slide is that Attuned's Net Promoter Score is 86, and a score over 70 in the customer service industry is considered world-class. So I just lift that to say this is an organization that has had great success with partners. So I also want to mention, before I get into the proposal for this contract, you've heard us talk about Attuned Education Partners before, and the reason is because we are already engaged in work with Attuned. As you, I think, know, Attuned is partnering with us on lifting the Hartford Public Schools Innovation Network. So as you know, we went through a process of selecting schools who wanted to really engage in the work of thinking differently about how we do school. And Attuned is a partner in that, working with ultimately the 5 schools who are part of our first cohort in our innovation network. And the line at the bottom is important here. That work with the innovation network is directly funded by the Barr Foundation. So that the Barr Foundation has a contract with Attuned through which Barr is supporting this innovation network work that is happening. And so the contract I'm proposing, or I'm bringing to you today, is really around some additional work that aligns with that innovation network, but it also extends it. And just before I get into the new work, right, you have here, what's the status of the ongoing partnership? And so we talked about innovation community engagement. So Attuned is engaged in some listening along with us in terms of what do people in our community want when they think about innovation, and then also launching our network. So we had a kickoff in early August with the 5 Innovation Network schools. You see a couple of quotes here from some of the folks in our Innovation Network schools, and in the status column, you can just see a quick update. And so the on-site training with our Innovation Network schools will get started in October, but we are on track with the existing partnership. So let me now say what this proposed contract is in front of you this evening. As I said, it's expanding the support offered by Attuned to build capacity, and in particular, to build the capacity of the Office of School Leadership and the central office more generally, central office operations, to better serve and support schools. So part of the reason for this additional contract and this additional work with Attuned is a recognition. We can't say to schools, we can't invite schools into a process of innovating in how they deliver teaching and learning day to day without also engaging the process of doing the same at central office. And I think, you know, we have a new chief of schools, Chief Barney, and there's been some transitions within the Office of School Leadership. So having an opportunity during that transition to build capacity, both within the Office of Schools Leadership, but more broadly within it central office. And if we go to the next couple slides, I'll go into a little bit more detail about those two chunks of work. So first, the proposed work with the Office of School Leadership, again, in the context of this transition, but also in the context of the fact that we have invited schools to engage in innovation, and we should do the same at the central office. And what you see here is some of the work. I won't name all these things, but ultimately, this half of the proposed contract is about building the capacity of the Office of School Leadership to best support and best execute on principal supervision and practices and systems that are supporting school success. And you see some of the examples of what that work involves, right? There's individual coaching for our EDSLs. There's professional learning for our EDSLs, right? So the folks who are thinking deeply about how to support our schools, making sure we're giving opportunities for them to build their own capacity, simultaneous with trying to build the capacity of our school leaders. You see the next to last bullet, tools and resources, right? So, you know, leveraging best practice, not only from Hartford Public Schools, but from around the country. And what are the best practices in supporting schools and in supervising school leaders? So that's one chunk of the work. And the next chunk of the work is focused more broadly on central office. And again, I'll say it, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'll say it again, that we can't ask schools to innovate if we don't do the same. And so thinking about how do we innovate and reimagine what we do in central office to better and best support the success of our schools? How do we make our systems and practices more efficient, more effective, more supportive? How do we remove barriers to innovation, right? We can't go to schools and say, hey, we want you to do a bunch of innovation in your building, but we've got barriers and roadblocks in the way in terms of processes and procedures at central office that make that innovation hard. And so again, you see some example bullets here of what's going to happen as part of the central office innovation work. That's looking at assets and barriers. It's being upfront about it, writing a report that says, here's some of the things we need to focus on in central office to support innovation. It's both cultural and operational shifts, and ultimately identifying policy systems and practices that can support innovation in schools. And so I just want to say that really we have the existing work with Innovation Network, and we're proposing additional work in terms of central office innovation and Office of School Leadership. And one way to think about this is these are three parts of a whole, right? We are innovating in our schools. And in order to effectively innovate in our schools, we have to innovate in our central office and remove barriers to that innovation. And the Office of School Leadership is the bridge between schools and between central office. And so it makes a lot of sense from our perspective to have a partnership with Attune that is cutting across all three of those areas to make sure there's alignment in this innovation work that's happening at each level. Here, again, I'm not going to read all of these to you, but there's some measurable outcomes we've identified. So I'll lift a couple. Certainly, we'll be assessing our own school leaders, our Office of School Leadership, I should say, perspective on the support they're getting from Attuned, as well as principals' satisfaction with the support they're getting from the Office of School Leadership, right? Those are measures of the success of our work under the Office of School Leadership. One of the other things we're going to be doing is introducing some customer satisfaction data relative to central office support of schools. And so one of our measures for the work of central office innovation is going to be, what are we seeing in terms of our schools assessment of the support that's provided by central office? So those are just some examples of the measurable outcomes that are going to be associated with this contract. And lastly, just the details. So the contract would run from September to June of this year. You can see the cost there, $439,200. The larger share of that is the coaching tools and systems in the Office of School Leadership, and then a little bit less is assessing and identifying opportunities to improve central office support to schools. The funding is a little bit complicated for this particular contract. We'll take $100,000 of the funding for this contract from a grant from the Barr Foundation. That's, again, over and above and different from this other bar funding that goes straight to Attuned, 100,000 from an ARPA Priority School District and Faith Acts grant, and then the remainder from ESSER. And again, this is, again, like as I said at the beginning, this is part of our effort to use our ESSER funding in strategic ways that will outlive the funding, right? And so building our capacity in our central office will outlive the ESSER funding. And I believe that's the last slide. And so I think at this point, again, we have the team from Attuned here. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to have the Attuned folks speak to any questions as well.
See if anyone else has questions. Can you just tell us for public consumption, what are the 5 schools that are benefiting from?
Sure. So the 5 schools that signed on for the Innovation Network, that would be Betances Learning Lab, B-STEM, Betances STEM, Breakthrough North, Buckley High School, and Sanchez.
Okay, thank you. And we'll open up. Board Member Brody has her hand up.
We're mentioning the 5 schools. Good afternoon, everyone. But this is not, we've already passed money to go to those 5 schools. So this money is not for those 5 schools. Am I correct?
You are correct.
So, okay, just so I'm clear on that. And can we describe how the Faith Acts grant ties into what Attuned does?
I can try to get you some additional information. That's part of the broader bucket of ARPA funding. I can try to get you more specific information on the sort of specific purposes of that grant, but that is something where the innovation work is something we wrote into that grant and was something that was part of what was eligible for that funding.
And can we just describe exactly what Attuned will be providing?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it, and then Natalie, Malaika, and Jessica, if I don't get it right. I mean, I think the best way to say it is in the Office of School Leadership, so that part of the work, so what you see as part 1 on the slide that's on the screen, it is largely, I would describe 2 things. I would say coaching, so direct coaching of the staff, the EDSLs and the team in the Office of School Leadership. So I would say coaching and professional learning for that team on best practices in principal supervision and in supporting principals in their work of leading schools. And then I think related to that coaching and professional learning is a provision of best practices relative to tools, systems, and structures for school supervision. So it's really in that school supervision space and a combination of coaching, professional learning, and tools. In central office, I would say it's a little bit, it's assessment. So again, what are the barriers in central office that exist to school success and school innovation? And then it's, once we've identified that, it's the work of, again, identifying best practice and developing a plan for how would we execute on changes to remove some of those barriers.
I would also add to the central office piece, Ms. Brody, that we will be helping to do some professional development in the central office around management best practices and culture best practices to ensure that once we lift some of the barriers, that the teams have the skills, customer service skills, relationship skills, all, the varying skills that you would need to support school service skills to make sure that the numbers shift, right, in terms of how people are viewing central office supports right now and how teams experience their work within the central office. So there will be some professional development on the central office side, as well as specific professional development for the EDSLs based on the terms of the new proposal.
Team, can I also just add that all of it, like the bigger umbrella, is also to make sure that the central office continues to serve, to be in service of schools and not the other way around, right? And that we continue to build capacity, especially among our school leaders, to be leaders of instruction, which, right now, we continue to hear from our principals that they want to get better at that.
Thank you for that. I do see, Ms. Brody, do you have another question before I move on to Ms. Oliver, Board Member Oliver?
I can follow up after she asks her question.
Okay, thank you so much. Board Member Brody? I'm sorry, Board Member Oliver.
Thank you. So just as part of, and I apologize if I missed this from earlier, the superintendent, you spoke about being informed by what principals are sharing. Are we using any of the other data we've received through, whether it be the climate surveys or other type of surveys you've taken of staff to help to inform and shape a bit of this coaching?
So I would say, yeah, absolutely. And so I would identify two things. I think the climate and culture survey data that we get from both staff, all three, staff, students, and families, has informed this. And that's data that's been part of, I mentioned that there's been sort of even in the innovation network work, there was kind of a discovery process of, identifying strengths and challenges, and attuned, that was one of the data sets we used in looking at that. And then I would also lift, we did some work in the spring at Leadership Institute with our school leaders, where we had some focus groups where we asked them for honest feedback about strengths and opportunities for improvement. And they were very honest. And actually, I would say that feedback in particular, directly from our school leaders, very much shaped this proposal and the work we want to do in terms of how we support schools.
Actually, the initial data set came from individual one-on-one conversations that I had, and that then when you came on, Deputy Foster, you had individual conversations with our school leaders. We just wanted to have, just very direct, informal conversations individually with our school leaders that identified several trends for us that led to the the focus groups with all of our school leaders. And there were specific trends, and some of them focused on, they wanted us to make some shift in terms of the way we supported them, which is great. We wanted to continue to build their capacity as instructional leaders. And then there were some other operational pain points that were identified.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you so much. I have another question with regards to this new support that's going to be taking place. In addition to the 5 schools, will you be adding more schools, or is it just going to be shifting towards central office and school leaders? Can you expand on that?
Sure. So we won't be adding schools as part of this funding or as part of this contract, right? And this contract is only for this year. What I would say is, I think we want to see and assess how this year one goes with this first innovation cohort of 5 schools. And I think it is very much on our minds to add another cohort of schools. Now, I think the question of whether that we add another cohort of schools to our innovation network next school year or year following, I think we need to see how this plays out over the course of this year with these 5, and then make a decision about when is the right time to expand that innovation cohort. So I think absolutely we have had very intentional conversations about what could that look like to expand, but that's not something we'd be doing with this particular funding or this particular contract.
I do want to lift, Paul, that the work with the EDSLs is designed to ensure schools are growing that's across the Hartford continuum, right?
Yes.
And that they're getting the individual support that they need, instructional support and social emotional school culture support that they need to ensure success for kids across Hartford. The deep dive coaching is going to mean that the individual EDSLs will be able to prioritize schools that most need support, and we can really lean in to figure out what are the individual inputs that EDSLs need to make to shift instruction and culture at the schools. So in many ways, this EDSL proposal is going to have, sort of vast, right, and shifts across the entire Hartford district, or at least we hope that that's what will be the outcome across the entire Hartford district.
Thank you. Can you perhaps just touch upon a district that is, similar to an urban district like Hartford, and what you did and what progress you made, and if you could speak to that, what success you've had.
Sure. I think I'm just trying to think of one or two that would be the size of Hartford that we could talk about. I think I can talk about globally. Attuned has done quite a bit of work with principal supervisors and in charter networks specifically, and in Jessica, I think my brain is going a little bit foggy. Can you think of a district that we've done? Sorry. We are doing some principal supervision work in Boston and in Leominster. So those are two districts that are pretty close to you guys. The Boston work is relatively new, but the Leominster work has been a little bit more extensive. And in both of those districts, we're doing a similar sort of rollout, which is that we are identifying specific needs in the individual principal supervisors or EDSLs and running a set of PDs that are aligned to those needs. For Hartford specifically, we have not quite defined what the monthly PD cycle would be yet, because of course we want to make sure we do a full assessment of what are the areas of development for the EDSLs. But for example, in Leominster, where we approached the work is looking specifically at math, because math was the area of need in the district. I'm not sure, Malika, do you have a couple of comments about the Leominster work that might be useful in answering that question?
Yeah, I would say overall, I've been working very closely with Dana Lehman from Attuned on the Leominster project. I believe we're heading into our third year in our engagement with them. Most of our work has been focused on building the capacity of building leaders. So school leaders and our professional learnings are all focused on instructional systems. So supporting them with what's our sequence for looking at data? What are our systems for looking at data? What are our systems for observation feedback? So we're working on some of the basic levers that we know are going to lead to higher student outcomes. And on the central office level, we're also supporting them with how are you managing and developing your building leaders so that it's not Attuned coming in and things are happening when we're there, but our central office team members are able to manage the work, delegate the work, and develop their people. So I do think there's a power in addressing the school level challenges and areas for opportunity, but also thinking about from the central office level, what are the systems that are going to support building leaders doing what they need to do. And we are seeing some impact and just confidence and independence and autonomy and how leaders are able to do that at Leominster.
Thank you. And is the Leominster school system, this is Leominster Math, correct?
Yes, so we're working with Leominster Public Schools with math curriculum implementation, ELA curriculum implementation. We're doing equity work. We're doing quite a lot with the district, but math has been the new focus for this year.
Okay, and what's there, compared to Hartford Public Schools, the families and and I'm going to put the racial makeup, socioeconomic status, all of that. What is that in comparison to Leominster? I want to make sure that, we're comparing apples to apples as opposed to apples to, cucumbers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I appreciate that push. Leominster has become increasingly diverse, their student population in particular. I would say 15 years ago, most of the students were white middle-class students, and that has shifted greatly. I would say at least half, if not more of students are Black or Brown students, many of whom are MLLs and whose families are new to this country. The staff demographics have not shifted as much as student demographics. So most of Leominster staff identify as white. I believe 96% of staff are white, and close to 60% of students are not white. So I think in some ways there is some similarity in Leominster's demographics compared to HPS. which also goes back to why the equity work at Leominster has been so important. We're thinking about how are we shifting not just instructional systems and culture, but mindsets around what's possible for kids of color in that system.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not gonna just keep talking about Leominster, but since you're doing work in Leominster, I'm just curious. You said that 96% of the staff is pretty much white, correct?
Correct, yes.
So have you done any work to increase the, you know, or pretty much create more diversity in that staff?
You're asking all of the questions that we are currently grappling with. There is, I think in general, we are all feeling the teacher pipeline feeling a bit dry across our country. And Leominster is certainly feeling that. And part of our work this year is supporting them in thinking through hiring systems and recruitment systems to draw in talent of color. Leominster is in central Massachusetts. It is not the most diverse place. It is not the place that the most youthful folks would want to necessarily live, and salaries are a real thing, and salaries are not the most competitive at Leominster. So these are all conversations that we've been having with central office leadership. And they're super open to innovating and thinking through different ways to attract talent of color, of diverse backgrounds. So I wouldn't say we haven't made any progress yet. We're still really in the stage of figuring out what is our vision for equity at Leominster. And once we have that vision kind of solidified, then we're thinking through the systems and processes to draw in talent. So I'm excited and hopefully eager to share some updates around progress in the coming year. That's our hope.
Okay, thank you so much. I won't ask you any more questions. I'm just taking a look, see if any hands are up, and I don't see any hands. So, oh, I do see a hand, Board Member Brody. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because Leominster, Mass is like almost 80% white town. So I don't know that comparison is comparable, but I'm trying to understand more. So are you a faith-based organization?
We are not. We are an organization, for private company that is designed to support schools and school districts and building capacity for school leaders, for school district leaders, and for teachers and staff members, so that kids can be in schools where they are getting their needs met. I wanted to say, Francois, in response to your question, that principal supervision best practices, when we think about the work of that will take place in the Office of School Leadership, principal supervision best practices are best practices for students across all demographics. Being involved in schools, looking at instruction, helping to coach your school leaders, making sure that you were data-driven, making sure that you were normed in terms of your eye on effective instructional practices. Those are skills that should exist in all districts of any size with any population, right? And so when we think about the Hartford work, we want to make sure that the aligned skills exist in the Office of School Leadership, so that every DSL is entering schools with a very normed eye for rigorous instruction. And if they have school leaders who need support, whether they're doing well and they need a push, or they are struggling a bit and need some deep intensive support, that the EDSLs all have some really strong practices and moves that they can make, so that your school leaders are really pushing instruction and culture, and ultimately that your kids are learning at high levels. So I just want to be sure that we, collectively are thinking about the fact that these core skills that we are hoping to bring to the Hartford community are to ensure best instruction, best culture across all schools, and that they are foundational practices that all principal supervisors should really, really be strong in.
And Board Member Brody, if I can just jump in, I will make sure, I think I hear the question. I think you're asking around the 100,000 of the funding for this contract that's coming from one of the various ARPA grants. And I can make sure to bring you more detailed information on the straight line between that funding stream and this contract. When we bring this contract to the Finance Committee, I will make sure and be able to give you a more detailed answer on the linkage between this particular contract and that particular funding source.
Thank you. So that was just something I just wanted to make sure I asked, because I didn't ask that when I asked about Faith Acts earlier about the grant. But my question is probably, because this presentation is like I've heard it before. And I'm hoping I heard it before because it was the same supports, but not for this population of our staff, because it sounds so similar to many that have come before us. But my question is to a comment that was made by the superintendent, because a lot of times we do say, like, our staff, this is what they asked for, and we talk to them, and this is what we're giving them. How can, what proof do we have that this is what they've asked for, and not just, you know, in word? Because saying I need help and then someone's deciding how they're going to help me is different from they've asked for this specific support in particular.
Our school leaders asked for capacity building so that they could be at their best at their job, right? Which is the number one role of a school leader, is to be an instructional leader. And so what we do is we look at the best practice, we look at all the research, and we look at what works best. And it's these types of services that allow principals to have coaching and that builds the capacity of their immediate supervisor, so that when they're in the schools, they're giving feedback to the principal, and then the principal has a very specific understanding of what to look for in the classroom, so that they can then get feedback to our educators. So did they say, I want Attuned to be the partner? No, but what the principals are saying is they want to be better at their job, and we're trying to deliver that for our school leaders, right? Like, just like we're trying to do for our educators via coaching and supporting our teachers, we want to do the same thing for our school leaders, is what we wrote in the ESSER grant as well. How do we build leadership capacity that is going to last beyond the ESSER funding that's when it's gone?
Okay, so I'm gonna, and so my feelings, right, are, where as a board member, I'm that kid a year out from Christmas, and I'm waiting to see what I'm gonna get, and I hope I get something good. That's how I feel with all these contracts. Because it's like, okay, I hope they do good things, and then we wait a year to see, oh, did we accomplish that wish? In this case, this is the wish of building leaders. But I can tell you, sitting here, I have not been that happy kid on Christmas morning yet. So I think I'll wait to see, the information, some of the information, and then I'm quite sure I'll have more questions about this particular contract. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say something before I. Oh, I'm sorry. I went on mute. I apologize. I wanted to say something before I see if there's anyone else who has a question or a comment. Before I forget, I'm hoping that we're intentional about the delivery of what principals are asking for, of what school leaders are asking for, because relationships are very important and cultural competency is also very important. So I'm hoping that this will be effective, that we will see improvement, that we will see innovation through this, and that the school leaders will receive the help, that truly receive the help that they're requesting. And with that, I'm going to see if there are any more questions. And I don't see any more hands up. So thank you once again. And we are now going to move on to the next agenda item. Christina, can you please pull up the agenda?
Yes, that is the update on Intervene. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble here, but yep. The next item is the update on Intervene. And I believe the superintendent, you will be taking the lead on that.
I do, putting my hat on, Chief Academic Officer for a little bit here. Yes, so just to give some background, let's see, we are coming back with a report on the services provided by Intervene K-12 over the last 2 school years and some of the impact of the services. This contract was for 1 year, but as you'll hear in a few minutes, it did extend for longer than that. We partnered with Intervene for tutoring services during the 2021-22 school year. And the decision was based on pandemic-driven learning interruptions and a significant body of research indicating the effectiveness of tutoring in accelerating progress toward for students. The original design of our partnership was for tutoring to take place one-to-one with students outside of the school day, right? If we recall back to the first year, and we needed to implement the beginning of our recovery plan as required by the state, and didn't want to put anything on our educators' full plate, which was already full. And so ultimately, the original design of the partnership was for that one-on-one tutoring. And when the academic team saw that many families, that we did not have as many families taking advantage of the opportunity outside of the school day, then the conversations began as to what else could be done. And a mid-course correction then included a shift to the model which was provided during the school day, not just to increase use, but also to support with intervention for students. And so Intervene extended the contract to run through the end of the following school year at no cost to Hartford Public Schools. And a big portion of the support entailed in the second year, providing professional learning to our educators for those schools that wanted to implement this during the day, right? Our educators and our school leaders needed support to learn how they could embed this, and also to extend teacher capacity for engaging in small group work with the students. So the original contract and Intervene, I'll just do a couple more and then I'll turn it over to you. The original contract was for 4,500 students. Ultimately, 3,800 students were served. And then, the additional services to Hartford Public Schools included supporting our teachers with their professional learning. I believe, or you can speak to the amount of hours that were provided for our educators. So I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit of the historical context. And I will turn it over. Aaron, I'm not sure to who on your end, but Intervene, tagging you in.
All right, we'll take that tag. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to chat with you all, and I'm going to tag in Ms. McGee from our side.
Well, thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share out my screen. Can everyone see the screen? Perfect. So good afternoon. My name is Carla McGee, and I am one of the partner success managers here at Intervene, and I will be providing you with our intervention overview for the school year 21-22 and 22-23. Intervene has been providing high impact cultural responsive tutoring to scholars in grades K through 12, as well as English learners for the past 10 years. We have been providing services to over 20 plus school districts impacting over 30+ scholars in K through 12, and have been receiving an average rate of growth of 29.9%. Our CEO and co-founder, Aaron McLeod, is an African Black man, as you can see. His vision for Intervene K-12 came from his struggles as through middle school and high school. His vision was to focus and to make an impact of children of color that grew up in the same neighborhood as himself, such as students in Hartford Public School District as well. As you can see on this slide here, some of our awards and recognitions that our company has received. Aaron has been featured in the Forbes magazine, as well as Inc. 5000. He was also featured in one of our Texas news reports for Black History Month, as well as Aaron being a member of the 100 Black Men National Organization, which they focus on wellness, economic empowerment, health, and education. For our scholar impact. So as Dr. Torres Rodriguez stated, we have partnered with Hartford for 2 years, 21-22 and 22-23. We have provided services for 16 campuses with scholars in grades 3rd through 12th for math and ELA. We have offered tutoring services for over 3,000 scholars, which resulted in over 22,000 sessions. As Dr. Torres stated, for our PD and our training, we have provided 976 PD and implementation hours. In addition to our normal implementation, customer service, we have also included office hours, additional working sessions, and then additional extra support that we provided to the teachers within Hartford. So what was done? Communication. We provided emails and phone calls made to the campuses. In addition, created those dedicated office hours for schools for support of onboarding and scheduling. The limitations that we were faced with was just busy and conflicting schedules. Some of the campuses had different needs, as well as tutoring started in phases. So actions that were taken, we met internally for planning and the scheduling. And during that, we also met for our tutor switch to accommodate from daytime sessions to after school sessions. We began establishing those intentional relationships with these campuses. For our above and beyond effort, we continued the outreach by weekly emails as well as daily phone calls to the 39 campuses identified. We were able to establish point of contact for those campuses, and then we provided those working sessions that were available 25 hours per week. So what you're seeing here is the impact and growth summary overall with all the scholars that we provided services to for the 21-22, 22-23 school year, where we had an increase in growth for our math, for our ELA at 29%, and an increase in growth for math at 36%. If you notice the attendance for growth correlation, for those that are in the school, we understand that when students come, we are able to see the fruits of their labor. So with the 84% of scholars attending regularly with our intervention services, we saw that growth of 33.30%. And again, this is just to show for those campuses that we had to have the buy-in. They were recommending other campuses, and they had that consistency of attending the sessions. For our campus impact with building teacher capacity, I will let one of our colleagues, Melissa Prescott, explain more on this.
Hi, thanks everyone. As an educator, we all know that COVID, post-COVID, and it was talked about earlier in this meeting, the need for that teacher capacity. So while students were in their Intervene K-12 sessions, teachers had additional time to work with students in small groups or within the classroom during that time to provide that individual support on concepts that are needed within the classroom, while we at Intervene K-12 were providing those interventions to the students. And so we were able to, as Carla showed earlier in a previous slide, we were able to give thousands of hours back to teachers over the past 2 years. And we feel really proud of that and want to continue to provide that teacher capacity to Hartford Public Schools.
Thank you for that. So in an additional slide, 2 slides previous, I did show an overall growth of all the students that participated. This is more of a breakdown with the grade cohort. So for English, you can see that we had a growth with our elementary, middle, and high school at 32% for elementary, 26% for middle school, and then 30% for your high school. And then in math, we also had that growth for elementary, middle, and high school. You have 39% for elementary, 33% for middle school, and you had 35% in high school. These scores were based off their pre and their post assessment. That's how we came with the information that we're sharing here. So for our impact that we have bestowed upon the students, the scholars within Hartford Public School, we want you to take a moment and just look at the positive feedback that we received from your community, from your parents, from your teachers, from your building leaders, just to share the experience that they have with Intervene.
As you'll see, we want to highlight one particular quote here, which is from Hartford Public High School. Tutoring went well, significant growth in scholars with all of the resources in place, including Intervene. This quote is important to us at Intervene K-12, as I hope it's as important to you. We were able to establish a research relationship with Hartford Public High School to do ESSER Tier 3 or ESSA Tier 3 for evidence research, looking at a small group of English language learners, our multilingual learners who were in 9th grade algebra, and how we were able to propose a very specific course that was tailored to them and their interruption in education. So we are really excited to be able to share those results to you as we get those results very soon from Johns Hopkins University, who is our research partner. And as soon as those results are available, we'll be sending that out so we can show you, the community, and the larger research body that's out there, the impact that we were able to have with Hartford Public High School students and beyond. And Carla, if you can go to that next slide, please. Here, what's really important is that we always want to get feedback from our scholars. And you'll see here the important impact that we did have over these 2 years. Over these 2 years, we have students who are essentially 90% happy with their sessions. They feel encouraged by their tutors. They feel that it's easier for them to understand the lesson, whether it's in the session during the engagement, or if it's to help out in their session or their lesson in the classroom. So we are really excited that we've been able to make this impact and we can share these results to you. We've been getting calls from schools that we've already worked with wanting to continue with Intervene K-12. We hope that with your permission that is possible, not just with those schools, but all the schools within your district. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Is that the end of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that presentation. I have a few questions. The first question is, how many students have you serviced, like in each school? That's the first question.
Intervene, you can send that data at some point. I know that we have an aggregate.
Yes, actually, on slide 5, Carla, I think you have that. I think we have the,
Oh, Chris, Ms. Santiago, if you can go back to slide 5.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't know the screen sharing. But I 3,800.
3,800, yeah.
However, there is we can give you there's a couple more numbers there, right? That's a little approximate, so we can give you an actual number.
Ms. Dersto Ledger, we can have Intervene send that separately per school.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question I have is, what tier was that with regards to intervention? Was that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or do you like what population specifically?
It was tier 2 and tier 3.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it up to Board Member Brody. I see that she has her hand up.
Thank you. When did the tutoring end?
For this school year, it ended June 2nd. And then for the 21-22, I'll have to confirm, but it was in June. It was towards the end of the school year.
Okay. Because I asked for a status update on that, and year 1, I think you were like at 810 students. So we're saying you went from 810 students to few thousand students. Because I have a list of how many students, what schools, the total hours. That's a pretty significant increase in service. So we're sure is it 3,800 students we're saying receive tutoring?
Yes, ma'am. So we had previously provided kind of piecemeal data points. However, we have been working with Dr. Negron and Ms. Doyle, Erin Doyle, on providing more robust data updates. We did get some requests, I want to say maybe earlier over the summer. And when those requests came in, we actually didn't provide the full-on data because the way it was asked, it was very specific. And so what we've gone and done is created full-on data sheets and reports to provide, really paint the picture of all the support that was provided.
So you're saying the report that I got from Dr. Negron, this detailed report, is inaccurate. If I got within at least that first year was not even 1,000 students. So within that second year, we reached a few thousand more students. Because it even has the smarter balance, like it has measures, it has improvements, like looks like a very well prepared report, but it doesn't add up with the numbers that we've been provided with today.
So what you're seeing is an aggregate of 2 school years. If you recall, we started this work, I want to say maybe October of the 21-22 school year. And as Dr. Torres Rodriguez mentioned, we had to make a few pivots to increase the support in the adoption. The first adoption or the first plan was to be an after-school program. We didn't see the attendance that we had targeted. And so we pivoted into the school day. And so when we did that, we were able to get an increase in the number of scholars that were attending. And as the correlation that Carla went over with the data, we're able to increase the attendance, increase the actual outcomes based on the attendance and the instruction. The And once we started to share that with the various campus leaders, that also assisted with the adoption.
Okay, so my comment to the superintendent would be, it would have been nice to know of all these pivots and it was staff training and training our staff. I knew nothing about it, and I've been asking almost 1 million questions about this contract. But what so helpful to me as a board member would be to know something we voted on over $1 million. This is where we changed and turned and ended up. That would have been helpful. But when you quote improvements and as if we're giving you the credit for improvements academically, those scores that you read and said we increase achievement by this number, what is that from? Is that your assessment? You did a pre-assessment, you knew where students was at and they increased in your system of measurement? Or how do we understand that improvement that you noted in the presentation?
So first of all, Ms. Brody, what I'd like to do, and it's Brody, I'm sorry, Ms. Brody. I'd like to own the reporting that got to you. I think that that's really maybe our fault for not getting reports all the way to you. And so we do have and take pride in robust reporting and data and analytics. So the fact that it was not able to get to you, I do apologize. And so we'll make certain that we improve that. We are extremely proud of the work and the partnership that we've had with Hartford Public Schools and all the campus leaders and the district leaders who are here now and those who have moved on. So we're very proud of this work and very much want to be able to come and show you all, come to a meeting like this, come to in person and present this work. And so going forward, we would like to invite ourselves to do that. And as far as the data and the analytics and the assessments and where that is coming from, Melissa, if you could speak to that.
Sure, absolutely. So Board Member Brody, the assessments, we do a pre and post assessment that is internal. But I want to make it clear with our team of educators on staff, we ensure that all questions and distractors and misconception analysis, they are, number one, aligned to Connecticut core standards. So we ensure state alignment for Hartford Public Schools and for any school district that we work with across the nation. Additionally, smarter balanced assessments, we were able to get some practice assessments online. And while Connecticut doesn't release their assessments, we were able to get some practice assessments, and we model our questions based on smarter balanced assessments to ensure that students have an assessment that they can feel comfortable with, that they are used to, especially for students who have tested previously. So we ensure that our assessments are data-driven and are aligned to the state standards and assessments. I hope that answers your question.
Kind of. So you're saying that when you said students improved by this percentage, that's based on your assessment.
That's based on
not like a smarter balance, they scored a certain amount more. So it's your personal assessment based on what you just mentioned.
Yes, that's correct.
However, the assessments are modeling the smarter balance. They are aligned to Connecticut state standards, which we can share any of those assessments with you. And I also wanted to just also add a little bit to what Melissa said, and so you understand like our model. What we do is we are identifying and understanding where our scholars are so that we can meet them where they are. And when we do our assessments, what we're trying to do is uncover whether or not they are ready for what they will see on the state standardized test. So if you make it similar to like a SAT, ACT, we are making certain that when the scholars show up for the SAT, ACT, that they are familiar with the questions, they're familiar with the style of questions, and so that they are not intimidated, one, by that test, and two, are prepared for those question sets. So that's one of the main reasons why we develop our assessments in alignment with however the scholars are going to be assessed by the state. And so that is we take a criterion approach. I know that there's many universal screeners that take a normative approach. We take a criterion-based approach to our assessments.
Thank you. I look forward to a more robust report out to make sense of what the board was provided previously, because it is like night and day from what we received to what you're saying today. But so that would be very helpful, because this is a hot topic in the community because it was such a large contract that people are asking. This is probably the one most asked question I get is, what did we get for that large amount, over $1 million contract with you guys? So as much information that you can provide, so I'm able to answer the community and be accountable for what this board votes on. I would really appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. And also, as Melissa mentioned, we are engaged in research with Johns Hopkins University. So we will have third-party publication that can attest and validate the partnership and the return on investment for the scholars and for the community. But our work is not done, ma'am. I feel like we're just getting started. We would love the opportunity to continue. We've learned a lot about the community. We've learned a lot about the campuses. We've learned about how to best approach adoption, as well as drive growth with the Hartford Public School scholars and the staff.
Thank you. Looking forward to the information, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Mr. McLeod. I do have a question. This is Board Member Ledger. There's the Ledger. Can you just touch upon or tell us what challenges you may have faced while delivering these services? Were there technical challenges, connectivity, anything of that matter? And if so, how did you remedy that or resolve that? Any interruptions, if you will?
So I'm going to answer a little bit, and then Carla, if you can chime in. Typically, the challenges that we experience are not it's not a Hartford Public School challenge. Connectivity, things of that nature, devices, things of that nature. Those aren't the real challenges. The real challenge is communicating and connecting with 39 campus leaders who have 39 different objectives, right? Everybody wants student growth. Everybody has the best intentions in mind. However, it is, how do you organize 39 different campus leaders and work within their master schedule? That is always a challenge within a large school district. And so we have years of experience doing that. What we typically have done was bring together the campus leaders and then kick off that work and be able to really ensure everybody's aligned. We had some challenges there with bringing folks together, but as Carla alluded to, and then on this sheet, we don't stop there. Our goal in our commitment is scholar growth. And so we're going to navigate, and we literally harassed your campus leaders to get them to the table to sit down with us to schedule time for those scholars. We brought data, we showed them growth, we showed them other campuses that look just like their campuses, scenarios, how we could set up. And so we definitely have worked hard. And again, Carla can speak in more depth, but the challenges, again, they're not the cognitivity challenges, things of that nature. It is really working with a number of different individuals to roll out.
Thank you. And with regards to it, I'm just going to touch upon Montessori, because Montessori is somewhat of one of the more unique methods of learning. How were you able to deliver services to a Montessori program where it's not more of a traditional approach?
So with Annie Fisher, I did meet with the campus principal, and she had already identified just a time set for intervention services. I agree, Montessori has its own unique setting. I am Montessori certified. My children have been in Montessori settings. So I understand that it's throughout the day that students or scholars may have their own time of when they're actually participating and facilitating in the lessons. So we met early on just to identify that particular time. And then once she had her time identified, we were able to schedule and get the scholars started.
Awesome. And and I'd like to do that with regards to the growth, with regards to your, the delivery of your services and what growth the students experience.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I said I would love to see the growth, what, like the data with regards to, the level of growth that they're, increase with regards to their performance in assessment.
Okay, so for Annie Fisher, you want to see a report for the growth?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, one more thing I wanted to kind of paint the picture, right? We are, guess what, maybe a year and a half from the pandemic. And so that's another challenge that was unique, especially in the first year. Folks are just returning from the pandemic. And so that there's that added challenge with adopting and rolling out a new program. And so the natural progression for the second year, folks are more getting used to the new normal. It also assisted with the adoption.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just gonna kind of modify my request to I'd like the data, or we'd like the data for the entire district, that all the schools that you provided services to and their growth. And with that, we're going to have to move on. But if there's nothing else, thank you so much for that information.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Our pleasure. And again, thank you. We've enjoyed this partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Christina, can you please pull up the agenda? And
Our last agenda item is a summer program update on academics. And I believe that's Chief Barney, where, hold on.
That's me.
Oh, it's, sorry, what am I saying? I knew that. Hold on.
Okay, and I know that I have it's Erin Doyle and Katie Leonard here in case, well, Erin, let me just do the setting and then I'll turn it over to the team. And I actually, if you go to the next slide, I always want to begin by kind of grounding us and the related presentations in our ESSER must-win areas, which guided, right, how we allocated our COVID relief funding and submitted the application to the state. And also, as we kind of look towards sunsetting some of the funds, it's important for us to just be mindful of the programs and the initiatives that have been supported by our ESSER grant. So this presentation will dig into the summer program offerings, which is part of right, the blue box there, mostly, right, expanding learning time and targeted support opportunities in and outside of the school day, focusing on early start for our younger learners, the enrichment programs that were provided to the middle grades, which we're able to provide through, right, the partners, specifically, right, our recurring great partners, the Village, 2-for-1 Sports, Active Theater, and several others. And then finally, we'll touch a little bit on the high school students that were provided credit recovery so that we can get them back on track. So key highlights, it's, 2,500 students, programming at 13 school sites, and morning academics complemented by the afternoon enrichment programming, field trip opportunities, usually on those Fridays. And then we also celebrate our reading challenge, which was done in partnership with the Hartford Public Library. So I'm gonna turn it over to Erin Doyle, our Acting Assistant Director of Intervention and Expanded Learning Opportunities. And Erin, if you can kind of go through the presentation. I know that we're short on time, so let's see how we can kind of manage it, because I think this is important work.
Thank you, Superintendent. So we're going to quickly go through the program design, our enrollment and participation, attendance, assessment data, and then speak a little bit to our partnerships with enrichment for our middle school programming and after school or afternoon enrichment for early start. So we offered programming for students who were entering kindergarten through 5th grade during our early start, which focused on literacy, math, science curriculum this year, and social emotional learning opportunities. Students were able to participate in afternoon enrichment through our partnerships with our community-based organizations. Our middle school program was, as it was last year, completely run by our community-based organization partners with the Village and Catholic Charities. And they worked with students on a variety of different topics and had field trips. And then, of course, our credit recovery for students in grades 9 through 12 so that they could recover credit and matriculate with their peers to the next grade level. So these are our estimated costs for summer programming. We are still closing out the last fiscal year, and so these are still estimates, but this is where we placed our costs. Instructional and support staff. So these are the staff that we would hire for summer programming as opposed to staff that are 11-month employees or 12-month employees that would work during the summer anyway. Our transportation costs, because we did offer transportation to both our Hartford students as well as our suburban students. And then supplies and other expenses. Supplies were things for the classrooms, such as chart paper and copy paper and pencils and pens and such. And other expenses include things such as our graduation ceremony expenses, flowers, program costs, and such. So this is a breakdown of our staffing by program. So you can see we have certified staff, and then we have certified support staff. Those are positions such as school social workers, school counselors, TESOL. We had some occupational therapists, physical therapists, and so on. And then our non-certified support staff, which would be our school safety officers and such. And then, of course, our paraprofessionals, our paraeducators, which supported both our ESY programming, and we used some paraeducator support in our rising kindergarten classrooms. For summer participation, we had 2,203 students participate, and this is the breakdown by demographic group. So you can see the number of students of all of our students in comparison to the number of students that we served that were students with disabilities, as well as our students that are multilingual learners in each of our programs. And our attendance was pretty good, actually. So overall, we had in our, for all programs, we had 84.1% of our students attending, and with a high point of our middle school at 92.6%. So that middle school programming showed strong participation and attendance. So we can get into the data to show progress. Our rising first graders and rising second graders this year had a new program that the department of our ELA department wanted to try out. This was directly aligned with our foundations curriculum. And so teachers were teaching the rising first and second graders utilizing this curriculum. And so the assessment components are strategically aligned with the curriculum that teachers were utilizing. So this helps us understand what aspects of the curriculum did students grow more, knowing that, of course, that there is a projected growth from sounds being read correctly through to the ability to read total words. So you can see from the beginning, from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment in both first and second grade, our students did grow. And this is for rising second graders. For our rising third, fourth, and fifth graders, we did utilize an iReady assessment. And so you can see we showed modest gains in third grade with slightly higher grades in fourth and gains in fourth and fifth grade. And then in math, we utilized a post-assessment only. And this is the average post-test score by grade level. These were prioritized learning objectives, and the instructional materials that the math department provided were intended to deepen the conceptual understanding and strengths of students, particularly around procedural fluency, and were aligned with on-grade level content that would be addressed in the first module of this school year. And so the average post-test score is indicative of the essential foundational knowledge that students will need to be able to engage with their grade level content for this coming school year. We were able to work with 11 community-based partnerships at our 11 sites. And there were a total of 1,263 students enrolled. Over half of the students attended at least 75% of the program days. And we were able to provide 36 field trips to 19 different locations. And so you can see the locations down at the bottom: Roaring Brook Nature Center, the Wadsworth Athenaeum, Pequot Museum, Science Center, Quasi Amusement Park, Story Barn, and a whole host of other opportunities that students had. And our next slide shows the specific organizations matched to the site and the number of students that were registered at those sites. So many of our community organizations were supporting multiple sites and in partnership with other community-based organizations. We were able to capture some feedback from both families and students, and these were some of the highlights. So we can see that 93% of the students indicated that their summer programming through our community-based organizations helped them feel good about themselves. That 85% of students said that they want to come every day to their summer program, and 92% felt that they had at least one caring adult that they could speak to. And those percentages were mirrored with the family feedback that we received that was equally as positive in those areas.
Ms. Doyle, I know that like the credit recovery piece is something that is kind of like a side program, if you will. It's always been something that we do. So I guess the highlight here is, you know, the number of credits that were earned per students this year was twice the amount earned in the previous year. And so we see here we had 32 graduates that represented 10 schools that joined us for the August graduation. And then the last slide here is just a quick overview of just all the other elements that encompass, right, making our summer programming possible, right? So the transportation and the bus routes, right? It is an operation that entails a lot of work. It's a short amount of time, right? When you think about all the programming that has to happen, from food services to the technology, and then the additional incentives that are provided. We wanted to just continue to build that muscle with students around coming every single day and showing up, even if it was to our summer program. So some of those things continue throughout the summer as well. We can pause there in case there are any questions for the team on the summer programming.
I thank you both. First, thank you so much for the presentation. And I do see that Board Member Brody has a question.
I can ask my questions offline.
Okay, thank you so much. I know it is after 6 o'clock, and I don't see anyone else hand up. Thank you so much for that presentation, and I believe that was the last agenda item, Christina.
That's correct.
Thank you. And so thank you for attending this Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, and everyone have a wonderful evening.